Crochet 101 with Athena. Hooked on hooks. Hello and welcome back to another Crochet 101 with me, Athena. Today we are going to explore the wonderful world of crochet hooks. We are going to review inline versus tapered hooks, all of their sizes, material types, as well as standard versus specialty hooks. After watching this video, you will feel confident choosing a hook that is right for you. Without further ado, let's get started. Inline versus tapered. Inline versus tapered. What are they and what's the difference? Inline hooks are exactly what they sound like. The hook part lines directly up with the body of the crochet hook. And you can see two examples here. Here's a smaller one and here is a bigger one. So what this means is that when you are taking the yarn, it's going to line up directly with the body. Looking at this hook, you can see where the hook ends is directly where the body begins. And this creates a sharper little divot, and it's usually much deeper than the tapered hooks. These types of hooks are great for beginners. The only downside to inline hooks is that they may end up making you use more wrist movements and hand movements, which over time could cause injury. And I bet you didn't know it, but you can get crochet injuries just like any other sport, even though this isn't a sport because we're not here to compete, we're here to have fun. Tapered hooks. They may look similar to the inline hooks, but I assure you, they are very different. As you can see, the hook actually comes out more forward than the rest of the body, and it creates a more little shallow and less sharp divot. These hooks glide more easily through your projects, but you're also at a little bit of a higher risk for losing your yarn along the way. Both inline and tapered hooks come with numerous advantages, and really, it just boils down to personal preference. Just like with yarn in the previous lesson, hooks come in all different sizes. Let's go over them. Hook sizes. Hooks can be tiny enough to crochet things like lace, and I'm showing you a picture because I don't have a hook this tiny just yet, or they can be big enough to crochet things like blankets with that really chunky yarn that you could almost like knit with your hands. There are two main ways that we can classify hook size in the United States. We classify them by millimeters, and we also classify them by letter size. I have seen hooks classified with numbers before, but that is something that I don't really find as common unless you're reading patterns that are not from the US. A little bit of a disclaimer before I start going over the sizes. These are just a list of 10 common sizes, but there are much smaller, much bigger, and plenty in between. Some of these I simply won't have, which is when I will put a picture right here. So the first size is 2.25 millimeters, or a B1 hook. This is a super tiny hook and probably the smallest you're gonna see in a lot of stores. You may come across smaller, but it's not really that common. B hooks and 2.5 millimeter hooks are a little bit hard for beginners, but they can produce incredibly tiny and detailed work. Here are some examples of what that size hook can produce. Nice. Next size is one of probably the most common sizes you're gonna see in pattern, and I have it right here with me. This is a 3.5 millimeter or an E hook, and you're going to see this a lot, especially with some sport to medium weight yarn. So, what does a project look like with a 3.5 millimeter hook? I would be happy to show you. This little guy that I just made was made with a 3.5 millimeter hook, and yes, it is a strawberry frog. There will be a tutorial on that. The next size is a 4.25 millimeter or a size G hook, and here is what that looks like. These hooks are pretty standard. This is honestly my favorite size to work with. Between this and something a little larger, this usually works well with medium weight, worsted weight. It is an overall universally beloved hook, at least in my opinion. The next size hook, I'm going to combine two in one just because they are so similar in size and I like both of them. You can have a 5 millimeter, which is an H hook, or a 5.5 millimeter, which is an I hook. And right here I have a lovely I hook. And these can make so many great products, and they still work great with the worsted and the medium weight yarn. The next size is super comfortable 6.5 K hooks, and I actually have 2 of these. So K hooks are great for yarn that is just a little bit bigger. Definitely can't do anything super chunky with it yet, but I actually made a pattern test of a hat with this, and I can show that to you right now. So this is what the same yarn that I made this with looks like with just a little bit bigger of a hook. Using these hooks, this type of yarn will work up pretty quickly, and it still doesn't really have too much holes in it, so it looks pretty good. The next size is one that I have 2 of also, and it is the 8mm or the L hooks. And I have them in 2 styles. These are great when you start to get into a little bit chunkier yarn, but you still want a tight stitches. So these can also create beautiful looser stitches with medium weight yarn. Next is the 10mm or N hook. And I have one that's kind of beat up here and also a plastic one. These hooks are great for larger yarn, especially yarn that is not in the jumbo category, but chunky yarn works beautifully with these size hooks. Last but not least, I have my largest hook, which is a 25mm hook, and this one can handle big things like blankets. It is also the largest one I found in stores. These hooks cannot realistically be used with smaller yarns. They can, but you're just basically going to get a fishnet. So if you like fishnets or you want to make a pair of homemade crochet fishnet stockings or something along the lines of that, go for it. Hook materials. Hooks come in all kinds, from plastic to metal to wood. Each one has both wonderful qualities as well as things that you should consider before purchasing. Metal hooks like these are my personal favorite. They're lightweight, sturdy, and recyclable. Hooks like these as well are very easy to find, and you can even find them at retail stores like Walmart. You can find them easily on Amazon, and of course, your local craft stores. Plastic hooks can be found almost anywhere. They come in a wide variety of sizes, have a lot of colors, and are usually able to be found in very cool varieties. Plastic hooks also tend to squeak when you use them, sometimes, especially with acrylic yarn, as well as they break very easily. So that's something you want to consider, especially because recycling plastic is a little bit harder than recycling metal, which may lower their points on the sustainability factor. Wooden hooks are also a great option. Currently, this is my only wooden hook, but they come in a lot more sizes than metal ones do. They can be cool shapes and cool colors. They also just have a very aesthetic look to them. But the only downside is with these are that they're a little bit harder to find, as well as the fact that they could put splinters in your project or your hands. So you definitely have to be careful of that. Special hooks. Now that we've covered the main materials, let's go over the difference between specialty hooks like this and traditional crochet hooks. So, specialty hooks such as ergonomic hooks like this right here have a rubberized handle or some sort of fatter handle, like if you were in elementary school and you had a pencil grip to help ease tension on your hand. These could stop you from having pain in the long term, and they're also just kind of fun to look at and fun to feel. They also stop right here usually, which means that your project can't keep getting carried away down here and means less hand movements, which overall lets you crochet longer. Traditional hooks don't have this, but they're also a great option, especially if you are trying to be on a budget. In terms of hooks that are specialty hooks, especially ones that I don't have, I'm going to show you right here, is interchangeable hooks, which means you have one body and a lot of different tops of the hooks, which can be great for travel if you don't have a lot of space or if you just want something a little bit more compact. Speaking of other specialty hooks, there's also something for people out there who hate counting. And if you hate counting, this hook is definitely for you. These are hooks that have digital counters built in, so every time you move your hand, it shows that you have counted a stitch, and you can also put in rows. Some of these hooks even have lights in them. Also is very helpful for yarns like black or navy that you can't really see that well, or if you have eyesight problems, it may help you. Now that you've learned the types, sizes, and materials of hooks, you will be able to choose and use a hook with confidence. Stay tuned for the next episode where I will be teaching you the basic stitches such as slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet, as well as how you can use them in your future projects. Thank you so much for watching. All of you mean the world to me, and I am so thankful every day that I get to teach you how to crochet, because that brings me joy, and I hope crochet will bring as much joy to you as it does to me. So thank you. Please leave any questions or comments you have down below, and I would be so happy to answer those for you. Until next time, happy making.